Good afternoon. I hope everybody's having a nice weekend. Today we're going to be looking at week prep here for ES and NQ. And so what I want you to be familiar with is that the inside profile is the previous week volume build. The outside profile is the 4-week rolling. And we have our pivot, we have our targets from it, so forth. And so just some notes along the way. As long as we're holding that weekly pivot here down at 58.97 3/4, I want to target activity up into the 1A, which is 59.45. And if we remember from last week, we had a target up at the 59.50s. And so that area there is going to be of reference to be able to gauge for either continuation or an exhaustive look. So we've seen exhaustive looks before, where you get an exhaustive node, we come back into prior distribution, and that gets reoffered. And if that's the case, then I want to see this push back into the 59.13 range up here on the way down. Then gauge continuation back into the weekly pivot and so forth. This here, as we play ping pong around these levels, these are just areas of interest, but keep me safe in the rotations that we're going to have on the higher time frame. So if we are pushing up into this 45 range and we begin to build volume up here, but we're not able to come back into that prior distribution and hold that, then I want to be hands off for any counter type move. But I want to find continuation potentially up into the 59.76 half range and so forth. But if we get underneath of the weekly pivot, then first thing I want to do is target down here to this LVN, the 82 range. Assess for continuation there. First yield sign down into this build here. So specifically, what I would like to see is if we are to see an exhaustive look down into this area, then we push underneath the 82s. Down here, we want to see that respond into the low 70s. So high volume edge 69, high volume 72. So into that area for potential LVN return bid through here. If that's the case, I want to bring us back to pivot and potentially across the board. But if we cannot find any interest down here, we're not getting any type of bid response through here, then the next zone I want to pay attention to is this primary LVN on the 4-week rolling right here into the target 1B. And so that's 45 to 50 right here. And if that goes, kind of like the 45 to 50 on the other end, if this one goes, then I don't want to counter that until I have a very clear response. See the hand of participants showing a productive bid, but instead either get on board with that, keep hands off if you're not comfortable with that. But essentially, as with any week, putting a lot of weight on weekly pivot here, and a couple scenarios. So potential bid here, not, then I don't want to be playing in this mix. I want to wait for it to get down to here. Gauge for bid, that goes then into here. And if we don't even get below weekly pivot, then I want to be seeking longs for continuation up to 1A. Now with NQ, relatively similar, a little different build on the profile itself there, but as long as we're holding above this 400 range, and I wouldn't be too upset about a little pullback through this, but if we're holding that, then I want to target this LVN here on both the previous week and the 4-week rolling into the 530s. So 525 last week was a zone that I was interested in. We can see that response around this mix, and then that holding on this on the back end of that move. And so as long as we're holding weekly pivot or above it, then I want to gauge the activity up here, the 530s. And so if we get an exhaustive look, push back down into prior distribution, then I want to see us push back into the weekly pivot 400 to gauge for continuation. Holding above this 530, then I want to target first the previous week's high on en route to the 1A, which is up at 20,752. But if we do auction inside of 20,400, then I want to start targeting the 260s. So right down here from last week's profile, this little LVN potential for a high time frame LVN return, not the cleanest. And so if we push down to that, I'm going to need to see some sort of V up and out in order to gauge risk against an intraday exhaustive node. On continuation, or inability to find any bid in this 60 to 83 range, then I want to start targeting down into the 20,000 down here. So if bid does provide an exhaustive look down here, yes, targeting back to pivot and then potentially back across the board, across this balance area into the 30s. But that's what I'm looking at to help gauge framework for this week. So get some rest. Let's knock it out. We'll be on for morning preps and so forth throughout the week. And hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your weekend.